Hello everybody, let me tell you a new story today. Today's story comes from Ni, who shared his bizarre experience in Taiwan during a company trip while working at a real estate company in Anhui called Black Handprint. This story left a deep impression on many friends. Ni is actually a capita from his online name, and his real surname is Zhang. Today's story is from Ni's father, Uncle Zhang. For the convenience of storytelling, let's just call him Zhang. We're going to call Uncle Zhang, Zhang. The story is his first-hand experience. Zhang was born in a small village in Zhejiang province. His family was very poor when he was a child. So, as the eldest son, Zhang started working early. Initially, he worked at a supply and marketing cooperative, which is essentially a store selling various fertilizers, pesticides, seeds, and agricultural materials. These were all state-owned at the beginning. At the cooperative, due to his young age, he did miscellaneous tasks and capable work, learning from the masters while watching and helping when he could. He was very smart and quickly learned many techniques. The staff at the cooperative all liked Zhang for his reliability, intelligence, and speed in work, and the leader also favored him. Later, when the cooperative purchased its own truck for delivery, they needed drivers to transport heavy goods like fertilizer to customers or to pick up goods from factories. At that time, the cooperative had no drivers, so Zhang became the best candidate and was sent by the leaders to learn driving, along with his colleague Shen. In China, in the 1980s and 1990s, being able to drive was a specialty. And if he didn't work for this company in the future, he could easily find another job elsewhere. In those days, there were few cars in China, and drivers were considered to have special skills. Now it's completely different. Everyone is a driver. What's more exciting was that this time they learned driving at the company's expense. Zhang and Shen just needed to study hard without worrying about the cost. The two of them were really happy. If they had learned on their own, it would have been a large sum of money for their own families. The two young men, Zhang and Shen, studied very seriously, and they were also very intelligent. The instructor who taught them to drive was very satisfied with their learning, and both passed the assessment and obtained a truck driver's license. Here is a note, everybody. Chinese driver's licenses are divided into different levels A, B, C, D, E. According to the types of vehicles that can be driven in the past, one could directly learn from an A or B license, but now every driver must start with a C license. Simply put, a C license allows one to drive a regular car and SUV, and a B license is for large trucks, and an A license is for large passenger buses and coaches. Of course, there are also special driver's licenses for the transportation of dangerous goods or other special transports. Naturally, Zhang and Shen became full-time truck drivers for the cooperative. They usually drove together, taking turns at the wheel and looking out for each other, and the roads at that time were very poor, and there were no expressways crisscrossing like today. Perhaps the journey was not far, but it took much more time to drive than it does now. This incident occurred when they were on the road from the company to a factory in Taizhou. They had traveled this road several times, so they were quite familiar with the road conditions. At the Taizhou factory, they loaded the goods in the morning, had lunch, and set off, planning to drive to Linhai that day, rest, and continue driving the next day to return to their company. The leader specifically instructed them not to drive at night, with safety being the top priority. Everything was going smoothly, but one day in April 1990, the supply and the delivery at Zhang's cooperative was delayed, and the truck was only loaded at 5 p.m. In April, it's almost dark at 5 p.m. And this batch of goods was particularly urgent and had to be delivered to the customer by 6 a.m. the next morning. This was a signed contract. If they failed to deliver on time, they would lose a lot of money, and the customer would not agree. The director of the cooperative discussed with Zhang and Shen, asking them if they could make an exception and deliver the goods today due to the special circumstances. Zhang and Shen were very responsible and said, "Director, don't worry. We will drive slowly and ensure that the goods are delivered by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning." The two young men checked the vehicle's technical condition again, and the tires, brakes, everything was fine. They got in the truck and were ready to depart. The director also instructed, "You must pay attention to safety on the road. If you are really tired, you can stop and take a short nap, as long as you deliver before 6 a.m. tomorrow. Then you can rest nearby for a day and drive back the next day." Zhang said, "Director, don't worry. We will complete the task." With that, the two set off. Zhang drove the first half, and Shen drove the second half. The road quality in 1990 was really poor, but there were also far fewer cars. Driving at night with fewer cars on the road was easier. They set off at 6 and had been driving for over 2 hours by 8:30 when they were about to pass Guanling in Xinchang County. The term Ling means high mountains. So this was a mountain road, winding and twisting, with no streetlights or tunnels. Both of them were very hungry. They had left in such a hurry after loading the truck that they hadn't had dinner. It had been over 8 hours since lunch, and neither of them had eaten. They wanted to find a nearby restaurant or even a small shop to buy some food and drink some hot water, and then continue on their way. But now, on the mountain road, with no villages or small restaurants around, they could only continue driving. Soon after, they passed a Y-shaped road, with one side being the main road and the other a small road. The main road was easier to drive on, but longer, while the small road was very narrow but shorter, saving a lot of time. Normally, if they weren't in a hurry, they would definitely take the main road, but today was special. They were in a hurry and very hungry. The two discussed and took the small road. After getting on the small road, there was a long uphill. Zhang drove carefully, and Shen was responsible for observing the road and reminding Zhang everything was normal. Soon, they saw what seemed to be a person standing by the road. The road was poor, and even with the headlights on, it was still unclear. As they got closer, Zhang finally saw that it was a woman standing by the road, holding something red like a handkerchief, waving it back and forth, seemingly trying to hitch a ride. The two drivers discussed and decided not to stop. How could there be a woman hitchhiking on this mountain road? If they stopped, what if robbers rushed up and robbed the truck? This was a road with a few cars even during the day. They couldn't stop. The two drivers decided to keep driving. It was uphill, and in fact, the truck was very slow. As they passed the woman, Zhang glanced at her, not daring to look closely, but this brief glance still startled Zhang. The woman's face was covered with hair. How could a normal person be like this? Shen whispered, "Zhang, it seems she has no legs." Zhang was driving, and Shen was in the passenger seat. Zhang could only see the woman's upper body, while Shen could see the whole body. Zhang stepped on the gas pedal and accelerated towards the top of the hill. Then Zhang secretly glanced at the rearview mirror and no longer saw the woman. Zhang didn't dare to look anymore and continued to drive forward. The entire cabin was filled with a tense atmosphere. Neither of the two spoke. Zhang didn't dare to ask Shen what he had seen, how she had no legs, whether he was mistaken. But Zhang still kept those questions in his heart and did not dare to ask them out. And who would wave a red handkerchief to hitchhike on this desolate mountain road? What would happen if they stopped? Zhang didn't dare to think anymore. The two remained silent, and Zhang continued to drive forward. Then they actually found a noodle shop with its lights on by the road, and there were a few houses nearby. Looked like a very small village. The two drivers stopped the truck. They were hungry and stopped to eat. They locked the truck after getting out, made sure it was locked by pulling on a door, and then entered the noodle shop, wanting to hurry up and eat. There were no guests in the shop, only the owner, a kind-looking old man in his 60s, with white hair and beard. The old man asked, "What would you like to eat?" Zhang and Shen replied, "One large bowl of noodles each. But first, bring us some noodle soup." The old man went into the kitchen to prepare the food. Soon he brought out some noodle soup, and then noodles were ready quickly. The two were hungry and gobbled up the noodles. The old man sat closely, watching them eat, and chatted with them. "Young man, where are you going so late? Driving at night on the road like this is really hard. Have you been here before?" Zhang and Shen gave a brave answer, and the old man continued. "Let me tell you, there are many sharp turns ahead. You'd better not go there at night. Many cars have had accidents here at night, some falling off cliffs, some overturning, and some with brake failure. There have been many accidents, and many people have died." Zhang was actually very upset by these words. He thought, "Boys, why are you so pessimistic? If it weren't for the agent task, who would drive on this mountain road at night?" He kept talking about car accidents and death, which Zhang really didn't want to hear. After finishing the meal, Zhang and Shen told the old man, "Uncle, thank you for the reminder, but we have urgent matters. We have some goods in a truck that the buyer must receive by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. They are in a hurry to use them. We don't want to drive at night, but we have no choice." Zhang gave the noodle money to the boss and walked out of the noodle shop with Shen. Shen said, "I'll drive, you rest." Then the two walked towards their truck, and then they found the driver's door open. What's going on? They had closed the windows and locked the doors when they got out, which was their habit. There were no valuable items in the cab, but locking the windows and doors was a basic operation when traveling, especially since they had both checked and made sure it was locked before going to eat. Even if someone had come in, why were both doors open? Could there be a thief? The two drivers hurriedly got in the truck and checked the cab. There were no signs of anyone having been there or anything having been rummaged through. There were nothing worse sitting on the truck. Zhang said, "Shen, it's okay. I guess a thief came in, so there was nothing to steal, and ran away, leaving the door open so we wouldn't hear." Shen said, Right. That makes sense. Let's go. Start the engine." In fact, the two pretended nothing had happened, but they were still a bit panicked, especially since they had just seen a strange woman. They checked the time. It was past 9 at night. They started the truck and continued driving towards their destination. Zhang rolled down the window to get some air, having just eaten and being easy to be sleepy. It was still uphill at first, and then after reaching the highest point, they started going downhill, a very steep, long downhill with a large angle. At that time, truck drivers on such roads would use the engine and gear to control their speed and intermittent braking. Modern trucks have pneumatic brakes, but back then they had hydraulic brakes. If you stepped on the brake for a long time, it would heat up, leading to brake failure. Brake failure on such a mountain road could be fatal. Everything was normal at first, but after about 15 minutes of the downhill driving, Shen shouted, "Damn, the brakes are gone." Zhang wasn't sleeping. He had been nervously monitoring the vehicle and road. As soon as Shen shouted this, the two drivers noticed the truck slowly accelerating, about to go out of control. Zhang looked at the road ahead. It was a deep downhill, straight and long. This was bad. If they couldn't brake, the heavy truck loaded with goods, with a total weight of a large truck, would only accelerate faster and faster until it rushed off the mountain road or hit the roadside rocks. The two panicked. What could they do? Zhang was sweating all over and Shen was trying various ways to restore the brakes, but the truck kept accelerating faster and faster, getting more and more out of control. The two became more and more desperate. It was over. They might die here. The window was open and the wind blew in, and at this moment, something in the cab was blown up by the wind. It seemed to be a piece of something flying up from under Zhang's seat and then sticking to his face. Zhang subconsciously reached out to grab this thing, and he caught it, and then he smelled blood. Zhang looked down and saw a red handkerchief. It wasn't a red handkerchief. It was white, and the red on it was blood. Yes, it was full of blood. Zhang's head buzzed. My God, this wasn't the red handkerchief in the hand of the woman who had just tried to hitch a ride. Damn it, why is it here? The horror immediately overwhelmed him. And with a flicker of his arm, he threw the bloody handkerchief out of the window. The smell of blood was still lingering in his nostrils. Zhang began to curse, using the dirtiest words, lot of F words, and as he cursed, he began to vomited the whole bowl of noodles he had just eaten. Zhang returned to his seat, continued to curse, and then he heard Shen shouting, "We have brakes! We have brakes!" Shen was already crying. Shen slammed on the brakes, not caring about overheating or not, and the truck, with an ear-piercing scream, left dozens of meters of brake marks on the road and finally stopped. And just a dozen meters ahead was a sharp turn. If they hadn't stopped it, the two would already be in the process of falling. The truck stopped, and the two drivers didn't dare to move. Zhang was only now feeling afraid. His breath was so rapid that he was almost blind. His eyes almost completely dark, with stars flying around. His heart was pounding, and his brain was in a state of severe oxygen deprivation. The two sat there for 5 minutes before slowly recovering. It was like stepping into the gate of the hell with both feet, and then narrowly escaping. Shen did not start the truck again, and like Zhang, his limbs were completely paralyzed. Later, when the two recovered a bit, Zhang said, "Shen, get out the truck and check the roadside for me. I'll move it to the side of the road. We can't stop here. If another truck loses control and rushes over, we'll die." Shen got out the car, but did not stand still. He fell on the ground, and then struggled to get up, walked to the roadside, and directed Zhang to pull the truck to the roadside. After parking, the two drivers sat by the roadside and recovered for a long time before setting off again. Shen drove at first, his legs trembling, causing the gas pedal to shake unstably. Zhang sat in the passenger seat, not daring to sleep. They locked the doors and left a small gap in the window. Then Zhang drove for a while, and the two exchanged seats in a cab. Finally, at 4 a.m. in the morning, they delivered the goods to the customer. The customer was a factory that had specially arranged for duty personnel to wait for the truck. They saw that the faces of the two drivers were not good and asked what was going on. The two drivers did not say what specifically happened. Zhang lied and said that the truck had a minor problem on the way. In fact, the two people had no strength to talk and just wanted to find a bed to lie down and sleep for a while. Fortunately, the duty personnel saw that they were all tired and took them to an empty dormitory. The two fell asleep and slept for the day until it was dark before waking up. On the third day, the two did not set off until 8:30 in the morning, and the sun was shining all the way. Yes, saying the sun made them feel more secure. Since this incident, the two drivers have traveled this route many times, but they have never taken the small road again, even during the day. And if someone asks about this incident, they do not speak of it. It's not that they don't want to tell others, but they dare not recall the experience. The two drivers also developed a habit. As long as they pass Guanling, they will open the windows, even in winter, blowing in the wind as if they are reassured. Zhang later got married and had Zhang Jr., Ni, the provider of the story. Zhang and Ni have also mentioned this incident, but only briefly said that he'd encountered something strange without the details. Ni, in order to prepare the story for us, asked his father several times before knowing the details of the whole story. Every time Zhang and Ni talk about this incident, Ni can feel his father's fear and nervousness. As long as he tells the story, his shirt will be soaked with sweat. Really scared. So many years have passed, and it can be seen how much psychological shadow this incident has caused him. At the end of the story, Ni sighed. The generation of our fathers was really hard. In those times, every aspect of life was much worse than it is now. Nowadays, many families have created a life that is much, much better than before through their own efforts. This is related to every diligent and hardworking Chinese people. Of course, we also thank our motherland for providing a stable development environment and reform and opening up, which has provided many development opportunities for all kinds of people. Thanks to Ni's father, Uncle Zhang, I wish their family happiness, joy, and health. Alright, everybody, this is the end of the story. Please share what you think of the story and your stories. If you enjoy my work and would like to help me continue to bring this story to you, please subscribe to my channel or like my page. Give a thumbs up to the stories you appreciate and share your thoughts and opinions in the comments. I'd love to read them. Share the stories with anyone who might find them enjoyable. And I need a co-editor, everybody, a native English speaker to make my stories better. Thank you, everyone. This is Alex's Story Time, and I am Alex. I got a lot of good stories to share with you. So, see you next time. Bye-bye.